Welcome back to Cinematic Disasters. Well, a few months ago, I finished watching The Legend of Korra for the first time, as the first time I had seen Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra were when they hit Netflix last August. And while I watched The Last Airbender right away, it took me a while to get into Legend of Korra. I watched like the first 2 episodes, then waited like 6 months before finishing the show. And I was planning to do this video a few back when I first finished, but then I went on that one like few week hiatus, and then I had a lot of other videos and reviews I wanted to get out. So yeah, I went on the hiatus, and then I had that week of like 5 different reviews in like a week and a half. So I didn't get the time to, and now I finally get around to doing this. This was supposed to be my last Cinematic Disasters review, if you can tell. If you saw the one for Fantastic Beasts, the next one was a Nickelodeon movie. It was supposed to be this one, but when Justice League came out, I decided to go with Batman v Superman. So, yeah. So, I'm finally getting to The Last Airbender. And I should probably give my thoughts briefly on what I thought of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I'll throw a Legend of Korra in there just because. A lot of people find this as a revolutionary show and one of the greatest shows of all time. I didn't grow up with this show. If you've seen some of my other reviews, you know I was brought up on the Disney shows. I didn't watch Nickelodeon because I didn't really think their stuff looked any good. Because most of the stuff I saw on that was like on Nickelodeon was like SpongeBob and other stuff like that. I'm like, no, thank you. And the only thing I watched on Cartoon Network, like religiously, like actually watched, was Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Which is ironic because that is now a Disney property, but that's not the point. So I didn't watch this until I was 16 years old. I didn't watch this as a kid, but watching it as, 17, my bad, 17 years old. I didn't see this show until I was 17 years old. And my thoughts? Yeah, it's pretty good. Is it a perfect show? Like, I've seen people say that there is, like, nothing wrong with the show. There is no bad episode of the show. That is objectively wrong. The show had its duds. They had stories that went nowhere. It had ideas that weren't very interesting, and they had some duds of episodes. Do I even need to bring up the, what was it called? The Great Divide? Do I even need to bring that up? No. Even people who love Avatar, like, really love Avatar, people I've talked to who love Avatar hate that episode. That is, like, one of the most pointless episodes I've ever seen. Even when they do the series recap at the end, they basically try to pretend it doesn't happen. And, yeah. So, yeah, it's a really good show. And I want to say what's funny about this. I watched, like, the last 6 episodes on the same day. And what I did, at one point, I watched the entire 4-part finale, then immediately watched the live-action movie afterward. And boy howdy, could they have not been more different. Because the show was very fun, lighthearted, and actually had some intriguing ideas, and had a really unique concept. The movie has none of this, and I'll get to the movie in a second, but I should probably briefly give my thoughts on Legend of Korra, just because. Not a fan. Not at all. This show was pretty bad. Most of the show was pretty bad. All of the villains were terrible except for Kuvira, even though she still had her problems with it. I don't care for the stories that they tried, except for the Civil War plot in Season 2. That was pretty interesting. But then they ditched it for the Dark Avatar garbage. And, yeah, that's the part where most people are like, yeah, no, I'll pass on the Dark Avatar. That is, like, one of the few things you should never do with the Avatar universe, is a Dark Avatar. Or a Dragon Ball Z-style ending. And what does that do? Oh, these 2 giant, like, they look like freaking, like, energy entity things firing lasers at it, like, doing chest lasers at each other. And it looks ridiculous, so. And that's just one example. I probably won't do a video on Legend of Korra, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But I didn't like Legend of Korra. I thought it was pretty bad. Avatar: Last Airbender, though, however, was really great. So now we get to the movie, and I knew this was going to be bad going in. I'm not so stupid enough that I'm like, I've seen all these other reviews, I've seen what all these people had to say, I'm not gonna go into this thinking, you know what, I might end up liking this might end up being good. I knew it was gonna suck. But what I did not expect was just how boring this movie was. And that's my main problem. So, going into the plot is virtually pointless because it's the exact same plot as season 1 of the show with minor changes here and there, and a lot of the stuff cut out. So what I'm going to go into is the differences. Now, I have said in the past, especially in my reviews like Percy Jackson and The Maze Runner, that you can make changes to a source material, and in my opinion, you should. You should never make it shot for shot. But the reason I'm going to go into the differences here is because going over what's similar is pointless, and what's going in the differences is where most of the problems lie. And we'll start with the acting. It's bad. It's bad. Like, the only exceptions are Dev Patel as Zuko, Iroh, and Zhao. Those are the only 3 actors who are doing who are actually acting in this film. And although I will give credit, as much as Jackson Rathbone sucks as an actor, and he's especially terrible in the Twilight films and Samson from 2018, did anybody else ever see that movie, Samson, from 2018? Anybody else see that? No? Just me? Ugh. I'll do a cinematic disasters for that sometime, but not today. I'll give him credit. He's terrible as Sokka. He was a terrible choice for Sokka or Sokka. Yeah, we'll get to pronunciations later. And honestly, people have this problem of the whitewashing the cast. If people didn't bitch and moan about this for the years before I watched the movie, I probably wouldn't have even noticed or wouldn't care. Do I care they whitewashed the actors? Fuck no. I don't care that they whitewashed the actors. My problem is, they picked actors who suck. And back to my original point, Jackson Rathbone is a terrible actor, and he's terrible as Sokka. But he tries. Like, unlike Twilight, where everything he talks is in, like, this like, raspy, whispering voice and just, like, no emotion. Here, he has terrible dialogue, and he's horribly miscast, but he's trying. I've seen people shit on Rathbone as Sokka, and as much as he's a terrible actor, he's trying, which I can't say the same for Noah Ringer, who plays Aang. He is, like, honestly, the kid looks the part, he really does. And there was a deleted scene that shows, like, he's going to this, like, fortune teller or something, and it's a stupid scene, but at least it tries to add some comedy into this miserable affair. At one point, she's, like, pretending to tell the future or something, and Aang does the thing from the show, the little, and, like, the way he did it, he looked just like Aang, and so the kid looks the part, but he needed a different director. I don't know if it was the kid's fault, I don't know if he can't act, or if it was Shyamalan. If I were to guess, I'd say it was Shyamalan, because Shyamalan's such a horrible director. And I don't want to say that because he's made some great films. Sixth Sense was great. Unbreakable was great. I thought Split was okay. But all of his other films have been nothing but trash. And especially, he's directed some of the worst films I've ever seen. After Earth, Lady in the Water, Signs, The Happening, and Glass. Oh my god, that more like ass. So, Shyamalan is not impressive. Has not been impressive since when was Unbreakable? 1999? No, that was like 2000, early 2000s. I think was Unbreakable. So he has not been impressive since then. And Split was not shot in the dark. It was a fluke, I guess, because he immediately turned around and made Glass, and it was terrible. So, and then the girl was Katara. Apparently, she was, like, shoehorned into this movie because she was, like, the daughter of, like, some, like, person in, like, Hollywood, like, some sort of, like, person who, like, position of power. I don't know how else to put it. And so she was kind of forced into this movie, and she's such a terrible Katara. And she was also in Transformers 4. She was the daughter of Mark Wahlberg's character. I can't be bothered to remember her name. She was better there, but her acting still needed improvement. And here she was really, really bad. So, and yeah, all like minor actors like Yue and all these others, like some of them are trying, but they just can't get any good performances due to Shyamalan's shitty direction. I should mention some characters that are cut. And specifically, Suki. Why is she cut? Why is she not here? I've seen people complain that this movie tried to cram like 10 hours of story-ish into 2 hours. There's a problem with that distinction, that this movie's an hour and 44 minutes. With credits. Without credits, this movie's about an hour 35. So saying this movie crammed everything into 2 hours is wrong, because had they made this movie 2 hours, it might have been a little bit better. It wouldn't have fixed the terrible acting or directing or the shitty action sequences or the awful dialogue, but it might have improved the pacing a bit, because the pacing in this movie is unbelievably rushed. They go from here to there to there to there. They rise of Skywalker this shit before Rise of Skywalker did. It's all these other terrible movies that just jump from plot point to plot point. It's Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's Rise of Skywalker. It's Frozen 2. It's all of these terrible movies that just jump from place to place to place without taking a second to breathe. So, and there's like no character in this movie. I can't give you any character traits from this movie. I can give you plenty from the show, but I can't give you any from the movie alone. So that's a fail right off the bat. It fails as an adaptation, and it fails as a standalone movie because you don't have any emotional resonance with any of these characters. So, let's talk about some of the additions or changes that are made. Some that are... One change, I will say, or like one addition, is the idea of him not bowing back to when he's supposed to be accepting the role as the Avatar, and that's when he like runs off. He doesn't bow back to them. I thought that was a cool idea, though. For some reason, when he does it at the end, he has this like sad face, like this. He's like, that's like the face he has. He looks like he just watched a puppy get shot. Like, dude. You're accepting this role as the Avatar. Can you at least put on, like, a serious face? That'd have been the only time where I would accept as someone not having an expression. Because they're having a straight face here. Okay, that would have been fine. But it's the only time he has an expression, and it's, like, the objectively wrong one. Any other expression would have worked here. Determined expression? Sure. Happy expression? Sure. No expression? Acceptable here. But no, he has this sad look on his face, and I couldn't help but laugh. And so I thought that was an interesting idea, but was botched in the execution, much like most of this film. Much like all of this film. And then some of the other changes involving the captured Earthbenders. People have torn this scene a new one for multiple reasons, so I'll keep it brief. In the original show, they were on a metal ship where no earthbending was possible. Here, they're in a prison surrounded by Earth. And then when they do finally pull their heads out of the collective asses and actually start doing stuff, it's the lamest bending. 6 guys do this like little dance routine. And what does it do? Floats a rock. It just floats a rock that's probably smaller than my head. You can do 6 guys. You know what you can do? I think there was one shot in the animated show where there was like 5 or 6 guys. The 5 or 6 guys flipped a tank. A tank! What did these pussies do? The rock slowly floats along. There's one other guy there who's like doing all the work, where he actually pushes the rock and actually like pulls up like a rock barrier. That guy's doing all the work. And I guess that is as good a segue as any. Even though I didn't stop talking about that changes, even though there's hardly any. So that's a ish segue to the action. It's awful. All of it. Too much slow-mo. I'll give credit. It's not as excessive as Justice League. As Zack Snyder's Justice League, but Here, I don't think Shyamalan knew how to use it properly. He used it as a crutch. Snyder thinks it's making his films look cooler, even though most of the time it's just distracting, especially when some of the scenes he chose to put in slow motion. So, he's doing it as a stylistic choice, even if it doesn't work. Shyamalan's doing it as a crutch because he can't figure out how to because he's trying to do all of these in like these long tracking shots. And some directors can do this very well. James Wan did it very well in the Aquaman movie. If they had gotten, like, the director for John Wick, or, like, the Kingsman movies, somebody like those to choreograph these scenes, it could have been great, and you wouldn't have needed all the ridiculous slow motion. But Shyamalan's just trying to show off he can do this in one shot without actually thinking about the technicalities for the fight, because most of the time, Aang, especially in the fight with, like, when Zuko breaks Aang out of prison disguised as the Blue Spirit, when he breaks him out, constantly they're just having to wait. They're having to, like, walk around and wait for the camera to get in place before they fucking do anything, and the bad guys just stand there and let them do it. And one of the best examples is during like, a short montage of them, like, freeing villages in the Earth Kingdom, and Aang's, like, doing this weird, he's, like, twirling his staff around for a full, like, 8 seconds, and there's a Fire Nation soldier he's literally standing here doing this with his sword, waiting for Aang to hit him. That's all he's doing. He's just like, hey, can you just stand there while I kick your ass? Thank you. Like, he doesn't do anything. He stands there doing this like an idiot, like he's doing, like he's dancing with it, while Aang spins his staff around like an idiot before finally doing that. And I think I figured out the problem. It wasn't until a couple days after I finished the film that I figured out the problem. Is that the actors have to wait, and the director have to wait for the effects to catch up with their movements. Because this is not animated. Animated, you can have everything move as quickly as you want. Here, they try to make it as realistic as possible, so everything they do moves so freaking slowly. But you know what the problem is? You didn't need this problem if you'd simply sped up the effects, but the effects are so damn slow that the actors have to do a full-on dance routine before they can do anything, and Shyamalan just has to sit there with the camera, waiting for the proper time for the effects to catch up with the actor. And you know a great example of what I can think of this? Percy Jackson. He's able to move so swiftly with it, and the water's effects are able to keep up because that movie is made by people who know what they're doing. This movie is not... Shyamalan is not an action director. What he excels at is making dramas. Sixth Sense was a drama. Unbreakable may have been classified as a superhero movie, but it was a drama. Split was a psychological thriller. So, I guess it can technically count. Thrillers and dramas, that seems to be Shyamalan's forte. Not action. So he was not the proper person to bring onto this film. Did he also write this film? I think he also wrote it. And he can't write scripts worth of shit. So, that was a terrible idea right off the bat. And so... And even at the end fight, one thing I will say is cool is when Aang makes that giant wave that... Well, it would have been... Had he, like, brought it down on all the soldiers, that would have been like, okay, that's extremely out of character. That would have been blatant character assassination right there. But the fact that he just kind of holds it up and just... is basically just telling them, piss off, and just holds it up till they flee. That was Aang. That was a good representation of Aang. That's not how it went in the show. But you know what? I liked that change. Because what did he do in the animated show? Did he, like, create this little water monster that he controls? I'm like, that's kind of silly. But in the movie, he creates this wave and just basically tells them, piss off, and to make them flee. And, you know, I'm like, that was an okay change. I am okay with that. People are going to be pissed at me if I say anything was, hey, this was an okay change. You're immediately getting pissed at me, but I thought this change was okay. And so, and... I lost my train of thought for a second. What was I thinking of? Oh yeah, speaking of what that water monster does, it basically breaks the bridge where Zuko and Zhao are fighting, and that basically kills Zhao. Here, he's killed by 4 random schmucks. Like, just 4 random waterbenders come up and murder his ass. With, like, no effort whatsoever. And if you wanted to change something here... and not have that stupid water monster break the bridge and kill Zhao, what I would have done is have Zuko kill Zhao. But do they do that here? No. They get these 4 idiots to come up and just basically drown him. And Zuko, what does Zuko do? He walks away with Iroh. I mean, I get the idea here is that Iroh's telling him that this is his start of the progression, that he's learning that fighting isn't always the best option, that there are other options. But this was a stupid change. And speaking of Iroh or Iro, let's talk about the name pronunciations. And it's not just in the names, it's a bunch of other words as well. And Shyamalan said he changed a lot of these pronunciations because he wanted the names and the words to have the correct Asian pronunciations. And there's a problem with this. Well, there's 2. 1, if you want Asian characters to have the Asian names to have the correct Asian pronunciation, maybe you should have the same racial sensitivity with your casting choices. And 2, there is no one correct way to say someone's name. You can spell a name however you want and pronounce it a different way. It's still how you pronounce it. Aang, just because you write A-A-N-G, does not make that Ong. It can still be Aang. So it switches from Ong to Aang, Sokka to Sokka, Iroh to Iro. I think that's all the names they changed. But then he also was stupid and changed, and that would have been one thing. I wouldn't have given 2 shits about that. But what he also did is he changed some words, like, you know how the Agni Kai, which is like the duel between 2 firebenders. Is it just firebenders? I don't know. I can't remember. But what do they pronounce it? They pronounce it Agni Ki. Why? And not only that, and again, that's another made-up... That's a made-up term in the show. Fine. But yin and yang... It's yin and yang. Like, you have to know that one's wrong. You have to know that one's wrong. I have a feeling this was all just revenge for everyone calling him M. Night Shyamalan instead of M. Night Shyamalan. I have a feeling that was revenge. I can't say for sure, but I have a feeling that was just revenge for people pronouncing his name wrong. But the difference is, his name might be hard to pronounce if you're just reading it. In other words, no. Especially if you're Asian. I'm not, but I can still pronounce these words correctly. If I see K-A-I, I'm going to pronounce that Kai and not Ki. And if I see Yang, I'm not going to pronounce it Yang. Nobody is. I'm going to pronounce it Yang, because that's how you actually pronounce it. And that's how it's spelled. Ugh, I'm getting lightheaded. So, but unlike a lot of people who say this is like one of the biggest insults ever, like, as a film, it was just another bad action movie for me. I didn't grow with the show. I didn't become personally attached to the show. I really liked it, but I didn't become personally attached to it. It's not like, oh, anything that's bad is automatically gonna suck purely because this and this and this. It's like, I'm not gonna immediately write something off. Or I'm not gonna say this is one of the worst movies of all time, because it's an incompetent as fuck film, don't get me wrong. But I'm not going to immediately say this is one of the worst films ever made, because it didn't destroy something that was personally connected to me. If I want to show something that personally destroyed something that I like, and I will call that a shitty film, like Last Jedi, Batman v Superman, or the frickin' Super Mario Brothers movie, or maybe not that one, but you get my point. Movies that destroy something personal to you. Like, if you were personally, like, really attached to the Avatar: The Last Airbender, and this movie, and you hate this movie because you feel like because you feel like it destroyed that part of you, maybe you need to reevaluate yourself. Because I'm not going to say nothing, it's not destroy your childhood. That's a stupid term. I've never used that term, even to describe something as bad as Last Jedi. So I am never going to say that, but if you feel that way, that's you. And if you hate this film because you feel like because if you hate it as a film, I understand. I hate it too. It's a terrible film. And if you hate it because you were so attached to Avatar: The Last Airbender and you think this was such a garbage fire, that's fine. I will admit that this film wasn't completely devoid of merit, though not for lack of trying. All things considered, few details aside, it did stay true to the source material overall. Even though people will say, no, what do you mean it didn't stay true to the source? Because I saw someone else say this in a YouTube video, and someone in the comments like, what do you mean? It did not stay true to the source material. How dare you say that? And yeah, it did. It rushed everything and cut a bunch of scenes because it had less than a fifth of the runtime. But it did stay true to the source material overall, and ILM did a pretty good job with the special effects, even though they're way too slow for a film like this. These effects needed to be way quicker, but the effects still looked good. And I did like the big thing with the wave at the end. I liked the change of him bowing. Every once in a while, they'll get a change that was okay, even if it's not superior. But it's not enough to salvage the other 94 minutes of this garbage fire. I also should mention the end scene with Azula teasing the second film. That's never going to happen. And that's just freaking hilarious now. And something I did notice about this film, and I found freaking hilarious, is that the end credit sequence was actually kind of cool. Like, the end credit sequence, like, the editing and, like, how everything moved and the colors to it. That's something else in this movie. The colors are butt ugly here. There are, like, no color what to be had, but the colors, the editing, how everything moves, how it's shot, the end credits look really cool. And it's similar to that awful Mulan remake. The credits look cool even though the movie was garbage. And something else I want to bring up that a lot of people don't know about this film. This was produced by Kathleen Kennedy, who's now the head of Lucasfilm and has officially destroyed Star Wars for the time being. No wonder this film sucked. So, that's The Last Airbender. This film really left no impression on me, so I really got nothing else to say. Next time, we're going to be delving into the terrifying world of video game movies. Oh no. So, until then, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.